one thing I like to ask a lot of people is, what was your first job? Like your first job in life, like it could be anything. And what maybe did you learn from it that maybe kind of has stuck with you today?
Aside from, little jobs around the neighborhood or for families and things like that, my first official job was Walmart. I actually walked into Walmart when I was 15 years old, and they said, sorry, we only hire, 16, 16 is when we start. And I said, I know, I want to fill out my resume early so that on my 16th birthday, we can just move right to the interview, which basically landed me the job on the spot, because I was really excited to go work for that brand. It was right down the street. So I walked to it, didn't have a car yet, need the job before you could get the car. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot of that working for Walmart. And for me, they gave me a lot of opportunities. As a young individual in high school, they, put a lot of trust in me to learn everything that you could do at Walmart. So yeah, I started bringing in the carts, right? But eventually was trained in, at the cashier, and then was trained to mix paint back when Walmart still did that. I don't know if they do anymore. To make keys, at the counter, and to cut fabric in the fabric and crafts area, and then eventually moving into some like assistant manager type roles, all 17 years old, 18 years old, all in a short amount of time. So I just thought that was neat the way Walmart invested in me, and I thought it was really fascinating that I got Walmart shares, that they thought that I deserve shares. And every month they would sit down and they would say where we're ranking in comparison to other Walmarts in the area, and really give us an inside look on how our store is doing, how our company's doing, how our stock's doing. And I just thought that was really fascinating that they would even take the time to do that with a 16-year-old kid. And obviously in all the employees at that Walmart. So I learned a lot from my first job.
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, the way that a company like that's able to take care of our employees, invest in them, maybe for the long term, and whether you stay there or not, it's great. I mean, it's great for the workforce that, we were able to get Ryan Boylston, the entrepreneur that came out of all this. Well, you then went on to UCF. So what were your next steps from there in terms of your career after getting that diploma?
I really took a competitive approach to the internship game at UCF. There was a few internships that were the top ones to get, and I felt that I wanted to get every one of them. And luckily, I actually did. So Hughes Supply, which is I think today is HD Supply, and it's owned by Home Depot. That was one of the top internships. So I was able to get that, and then I got the Anheuser-Busch amusement park internship, which that one was really exciting because one, it paid. So that was a big deal. And two, you got to drive around the Shamu Mobile, which was a little VW bug that they had put a tail on and fins on, and actually shot water out of the top. So it was kind of fun to drive that around for SeaWorld in Orlando. But then after that, I utilized those internships to land a position with JM Family Enterprises in Deerfield Beach. My mom has actually worked for that company for 35 years. And I knew Mr. Moran growing up, and he's a pretty incredible human being. He was the first person to ever sell a car on television. He was Jim Moran, the courtesy man, is what they used to call him up in Chicago. And he retired from selling Pontiacs and other brands and retired down to Florida, and Toyota came to him and said, hey, will you sell this car in the United States? And long story short, he said yes. And he really grew a automotive empire, which the umbrella corporation, JM Family Enterprises, a lot of different brands underneath that umbrella. And one of the big things that I took away from him, he's always referred to his team as associates. He does not use the word employee. He has never used that word. He's always used the word associates. It's the same word that I use today with my team members. And it's one of the top companies to work for in the United States. Every single year after year, they're in the top 5, top 10 companies. And I took a lot away from not only growing up in that company with my mother working there, but also my time that I got to spend there at JM Family Enterprises.
What was the next steps after JM Family Enterprises?
So what I ended up doing at JM Family Enterprises is climbing a corporate ladder that I don't know I really wanted to climb so early on. So it was great. I was successful. They gave me a great promotion. They moved me to South Carolina, and not exactly what I was looking for. So I ended up leaving to move back to Florida. My wife and I were going to have our first child, and I started working for AutoNation. AutoNation is headquartered in Fort Lauderdale. And what I found myself doing was climbing the same corporate ladder again. And so I was offered a promotion. I declined that promotion because I said, here I go, here I am, I'm doing it again, right? I'm climbing this ladder that I don't really want to be at the top of. I'm going to, sit in my current position and continue to grow my consulting business. And AutoNation actually walked me out of the building the day after I turned down the promotion.
Wow.
Apparently not something you do at AutoNation.
I feel like maybe myself or other people listening are thinking, you've done a great job. Your work was recognized and you were offered promotions. And why not climb the corporate ladder? What did you have against that? What was your thinking in terms of not climbing that? I assume that might have even come with a better paycheck too.
Sure. So, well, if it would have been a way better paycheck, maybe I could have, hung in there. But no, that's a great question. Although I was passionate about the auto industry, I wasn't really passionate about the dealer side. So at JM Family Enterprises, my job was to go and live inside a dealership and identify disconnects in marketing and process and train their sales team. My job at AutoNation was to rethink how they buy and sell used and pre-owned vehicles. So most of my time in the auto industry was at the dealership level, and it was something that I wasn't passionate about. Had I gotten that same opportunity, that same ladder handed to me at the manufacturer side, like at Toyota Motor Sales in Torrance, California, I think I'd probably still be in the auto industry today. I would have been able to move into areas of the auto industry that I'm really passionate about, such as marketing, and digital strategy. But I wasn't given that opportunity in some of those organizations that are more tied to the dealership level.
Yeah. So, okay. So you're walked out of there. What do you do next? And I assume at this point you're married. Do you have any kids?
I am married. I'm in my first house and have my maybe 1-year-old son at home. So
yeah, you got a mortgage, you got a 1-year-old.
And my wife's a teacher, by the way. So.
Oh, great. Yeah. Well, so what's next? What are you thinking, and what do you do?
So you immediately start thinking, how, we gotta pay the bills, right? I mean, that's what you got to do. So I mentioned that I was doing some consulting on the side. What I found was a lot of what I learned with JM Family Enterprises about identifying disconnects with dealerships, that I could use those same tools, those same skills for small and medium-sized businesses. So I was consulting on the side. So on that drive home, I immediately got on the phone and started calling all of my clients and told them, hey, you wanted more of my time? You got it. Remember that introduction that you wanted to make, but I, wasn't in a place to take that introduction? Well, now I'm open for it. Can we meet tomorrow? Can I take you out for lunch? And that's what I did. I made phone calls all the way home. And then the next day I got up like any other normal day. And instead of getting on the tri-rail to Fort Lauderdale to go to work at AutoNation, I got up and went to a coffee shop or went to the library and rented out a little room and just, grinded it out and tried to start my consulting firm.
Is this the famous library that Joe Russo asked me to ask you about? Because he said, ask this guy about the library. So what are you talking about?
Oh, yes. So I may have adjusted that story a little bit. On day one, I went to the library, except the library doesn't open till 9. And I got there at about 7:30. So I then had to walk to the coffee shop where I worked until the library opened. And then what I did is I actually rented, I guess, what you would call my first office, which was the quiet room 203, by the hour. So every hour I had to walk out, go up to the front counter. Is there anybody waiting for the room? No. Okay. Well, I'll rent it another hour then. And I'll go back into the room. Every hour I had to check. And once in a while I would come out and someone would be waiting for the room. I'd be a college student or, a senior citizen from Delray Beach doing a little class or something. And so then I'd be out of the room for an hour and then I would go back in. That was my first office.
The public library, the quiet room.
The Delray Beach Public Library. That's it.
So I'm actually sitting here at the Universidad Francisco Americana in Guatemala City, and I'm doing something similar, actually. I've got a reserved room here. It's quiet. The reason I picked this room. Now I'm teaching on this campus. And so they've offered me some different amenities, including being able to reserve rooms. So it's good. But I think finding loopholes, I guess you could say, finding niches, finding ways to keep costs low